In MoneyWatch, millions of Americans could face homelessness as the federal eviction moratorium comes to an end this week. Last month, the CDC extended the ban, but said it was likely the last time they would do so. Now, housing advocates are raising concerns over a surge in evictions, saying that it could trigger another wave of COVID-19 as the Delta variant fuels new infections. For more on this now, I want to bring in CBS MoneyWatch reporter Irina Ivanova. Thank you so much for joining us about this. I know for a fact that there are landlords that sort of have already filed their eviction notices, and they're just waiting for the moratorium to lift so that, things can get moving in the courts. So this is a real and legitimate concern. The federal eviction moratorium is set to end this week. So then, once the clock runs out, what happens?
That's right, Anne-Marie. So the moratorium put a halt on the very last step of the eviction process, which is physically being removed from your home. Once it runs out, the renters most at risk will be those who already have had eviction cases, papers filed against them. They could be forced to move, depending on where they live. There are a few states that have their own eviction protections that extend beyond the federal moratorium. So California, New Jersey, New York, Hawaii, the District of Columbia have rental moratoriums in place, eviction moratorium in place that extend past the CDC. And then advocates have also called on the federal government to extend the CDC's ban, considering the public health situation and how much trouble renters have had paying back rent.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. But, they're also connecting this. Housing advocates are connecting the lifting of this ban to a surge in COVID cases. What's the connection?
That's right. So the initial justification for the CDC's eviction ban back in September was that it would help stem the spread of COVID-19. And since that ban came out, there's been a lot of research to show that there is a connection. There's a new study published this week in the American Journal of Epidemiology that looked at 6 months last year, looked at states that allowed evictions to proceed and ones that didn't. And they found that allowing evictions to go through led to 433,000 additional COVID cases and an additional 10,000 deaths. And of course, the study was done before the Delta variant was widespread, which by all accounts is much more infectious than the variants that were spreading last year. We also have research from the eviction lab at Princeton University that came out just last month that shows that neighborhoods with high rates of eviction filings are the very same neighborhoods that have the lowest rates of vaccinations. And that is causing housing advocates to raise the alarm.
Now, the thing about this moratorium is that it doesn't cancel what you owe or forgive it. You still have to pay the rent or the mortgage that you haven't paid during the time that the pandemic has been raging. And so I'm wondering, that's an awful lot of money to pay back. I know here in Philadelphia there are some programs to help renters who have this back rent to pay, but I don't know how widespread these sort of programs are. Is there financial assistance available out there?
There is, and the National Low-Income Housing Coalition keeps a database of all the programs that are out there. There are hundreds. There are very many. And the specifics will really depend on where you live. So just to give an example, some cities and states are making money available just for rent. Others will make assistance available to pay for utilities, for instance. There's different requirements for how much income you're allowed to have. Some programs are prioritizing very, very low-income renters. Others are more open. Now, the Treasury recommends on its website that tenants that are looking for programs look for a local program first. They say that if there's a program run by your city or run by your county, those tend to have a slightly better track record of getting the money out faster than programs that are run statewide.
So more than $45 billion has been allocated by Congress for rental assistance in the last two stimulus packages. What rights do renters have when it comes to seeking assistance? Especially if you have, a landlord who's maybe already filed an eviction notice and the clock is ticking for you.
That's right. So some programs will make money available to tenants directly if your landlord refuses to take the money. But again, that will depend on where you live. One development that we have seen during this whole crisis, is there are a spate of cities that have passed so-called right to counsel laws, which means that if you're a tenant facing eviction, you will have the right to a lawyer to actually contest that eviction in court. And this is very new. We've seen Milwaukee, Denver, Philadelphia, Philadelphia, Louisville passed these laws. There's also statewide programs being put in place in Connecticut, Maryland, and Washington State. And those will take a little while to get off the ground, but this is potentially really good news for tenants, because historically tenants facing eviction don't have lawyers, they don't have money for a lawyer, or they don't know where to find one, and that really affects how they do in court. Overwhelmingly, eviction cases tend to be decided against renters in favor of landlords. So this is one reform that we are seeing happening in light of this potential eviction crisis.
Yeah, it's sort of a hodgepodge depending on where you live. So it's really up to you out there to be proactive. Those programs are available. They're not always well advertised. So you got to sort of get on the computer and dig. Same thing for these small landlords that are hurting too. That rent payment is probably paying their mortgage. So they're kind of up against the wall as well. Irina, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
So listen, you can read Irina's article about eviction concerns amid the rise in new COVID-19 cases right now. You can just head to cbsnews.com.